The story opens with a teenage girl named June, who has just moved to Milan, Italy with her mother. June's mom is a painter, and June has been living without her father for a long time. Before she heads to her new school, June takes a quiet moment to look at a photo of her late brother who passed away 2 years ago. Then she says goodbye to her mother and rushes off, stepping into an elite school filled with the children of wealthy business people and powerful officials. But the moment June arrives, she gets called over by Amelia and Blaze. They are stylish, confident, and clearly used to being at the top of the social ladder. June, on the other hand, looks stiff and simple, like she is trying her best not to stand out. Without wasting any time, they take her under their wing, showing her around and giving her the quick rundown on how things work at this school. And while they are walking, June's attention suddenly shifts to a handsome student named James. James might look charming on the surface, but his reputation says something else. He is known as a playboy, and even more than that, he is a feared street fighter. Amelia quickly warns June to stay away from him. When June finally gets to class, Professor Alex asks her to introduce herself in front of everyone. After that, she takes an empty seat, and right beside her is Will. He is smart, quiet, and the kind of guy who keeps to himself. June and Will start talking, and it feels like she has finally found someone calm and normal to connect with. But then James suddenly shows up and tries to force June to move from her seat. Professor Alex shuts it down immediately and orders James to sit somewhere else. Not long after, June is asked about the meaning of a famous poem quote. To everyone's surprise, she answers it easily like it is nothing. Will is clearly impressed, and without saying it out loud, he starts catching feelings. Later, while June is sitting in the school garden, Will approaches her and hands her a warm cup of coffee. He compliments her knowledge of literature and poetry, and it is obvious he enjoys being around her. Then he heads back to class. A little while later, a small accident turns into a big problem. June accidentally spills coffee onto James's shirt as he walks by. James snaps. He grabs June and drags her into the men's bathroom, where he intimidates her and forces her to clean his clothes. And just like that, June's new life in Milan gets complicated. This is love me, love me. When June is about to leave, Amelia tells her she already knows what happened. And worse, the whole school is already talking about it. Still, Amelia tells June to ignore the gossip and not let James get to her. Then she invites June to come to a party with them that night. Back home, June's mother tells her that the next day she has an important meeting with her boss, Jordan, and some investors. The problem is, Jordan is struggling to find a babysitter for his youngest child. June immediately offers to help for just one day, but in exchange, she asks her mother to let her go to the party that night. After getting permission, June is picked up later by Amelia and Blaze. The moment they see her simple outfit, they decide she needs a total makeover. They dress her up in a red gown that looks bold, sexy, and elegant. And then they take her straight to a nightclub. And this is not just any club. Along with the party atmosphere, there's also an MMA fight event happening there. Before long, Will finds June. The second he sees her in that dress, he is even more captivated. He apologizes for how James treated her earlier, and he tries to explain that James is not as bad as he seems. Then Will reveals something important. James has been his best friend since they were kids. In the middle of their conversation, the crowd suddenly turns its attention to an announcement about the main event that is about to begin. The fight will feature the defending champion against a challenger known for being brutally aggressive. And to June's surprise, the defending champion turns out to be none other than James. The fight does not last long. James knocks out his opponent with shocking ease, leaving the crowd roaring with excitement. After the match, Will brings June over to congratulate James. While they are there, Will openly tells James that he really likes June, and he asks him to treat her better from now on. As the two friends talk, June happens to notice something strange in a nearby trash bin. A syringe. The sight immediately raises a troubling suspicion in her mind that James might be using steroids. But before she can look any closer, she is suddenly interrupted by Austin, James's trainer. Later that night, while everyone is enjoying the party and dancing, Will briefly leaves June to grab some drinks. A moment later, June notices him talking with another girl. Amelia casually explains that the girl is Diana, Will's ex-girlfriend. After finishing her conversation with Amelia, June suddenly finds herself confronted by James. Without much explanation, he tries to force her to leave the club. His rough attitude only makes June dislike him even more. But James does not seem to care. Instead, he warns June to stay away from Will's life. He even goes as far as insulting her, accusing her of being the kind of girl who only chases rich guys like Will. When June finally returns home, she receives a message from Will asking where she is. She decides not to tell him about what happened at the club and simply says she left early because she had something to take care of. Before ending the conversation, Will mentions that he wants to take her out the next day to visit an art building somewhere in Milan. June happily agrees. Later that night, curiosity gets the better of her. She scrolls through Will's social media and notices several photos of James. Even though she cannot stand James's attitude, she has to admit that there is something about him that she finds strangely captivating. The next day, Will takes June on a walk around one of Milan's historic buildings. As they wander through the city, they talk about their hobbies, their dreams, and the things they hope to do in the future. Will also shares a little about his long friendship with James. According to him, even though James can be annoying and reckless sometimes, deep down he is an incredibly loyal and sincere friend. Will also admits that James has a certain charm that makes girls fall for him easily. June immediately disagrees. In her eyes, James is nothing more than an arrogant guy who is far too confident in himself. But somewhere in the middle of their conversation, the mood suddenly shifts. Will leans in and kisses June. From that moment on, the two of them officially become a couple. Later, keeping her promise to her mother, June says goodbye to Will and heads over to babysit Jordan's youngest child, Jasper. In front of his father, Jasper behaves like the sweetest kid imaginable, polite, cheerful, and full of smiles. But the moment Jordan leaves, Jasper's true personality comes out. The boy turns out to be incredibly mischievous and hard to control. As June runs after him around the house, she suddenly makes a surprising discovery. Jasper is not just Jordan's youngest son. He is also James's little brother. During lunch together, Jordan begins talking a little about his family life. It turns out he has been divorced from his former wife for quite a long time. Unfortunately, after she remarried a terrible man just a few months later, things went downhill. Now, she is suffering from serious mental problems and is being treated in a psychiatric hospital. Hearing his father talk about his mother like that instantly triggers James's anger. He cannot accept the way his father seems to expose his mother's painful past. The tension quickly turns into an argument. Eventually, Jordan steps in and demands that James apologize to both June and his mother. He also tells James to escort June to a party hosted by his friends later that night. When they are about to leave, June refuses to ride as a passenger on the motorcycle. Instead, she insists on driving it herself. At first, James thinks she must be joking. But what he does not realize is that June used to be a racer. By the time they arrive at the party, Will immediately notices June showing up with James, and he cannot hide his jealousy. After June explains the situation, Will finally understands and invites her inside. It turns out the party is also hosting another fight, and James is once again scheduled to compete. While preparing for the fight, June notices Austin giving James an injection. Concerned, she immediately asks about it. But James brushes her off and tells her not to interfere with his life. Later, while June is looking for Will, a man suddenly blocks her path and tries to harass her. Thankfully, Will and James appear at just the right moment and quickly beat the man down. It turns out the bald man James just attacked was supposed to be his opponent in the upcoming fight. This obviously makes Austin furious. He even blames June for causing the chaos. After the party winds down, Will suggests they help take James home since he is clearly drunk. While Will goes back inside to retrieve the wallet he left behind, James suddenly calls June over and starts flirting with her. At first, June tries to ignore him, but James's charm slowly breaks down her resistance. The tension between them grows stronger and stronger. Just as they are about to kiss, Will suddenly returns.
Have you always been this beautiful?
Stop! Stop! If you tickle me again, I will bite your finger.
I dare you.
Later that night, alone in her room, June finds herself trapped in a difficult emotional dilemma. On one side, there is Will, kind, gentle, and always caring. On the other side, there is James, whose intense presence keeps lingering in her thoughts. As she lies there thinking, June suddenly receives a message from James. The message is bold and full of temptation. At first, she tries to ignore it, but when James starts sending voice messages filled with teasing and seduction, June begins to lose control of her emotions and the temptation becomes harder to resist. The next day at school, James approaches June again, laughing about what happened the night before. Feeling humiliated, June snaps back and calls him shameless, accusing him of trying to steal her away from Will. Her words hit James hard. His temper flares instantly. In his eyes, June is nothing more than a cheap girl who is not even close to his type. According to him, the only reason he flirted with her in the first place was to test whether she was truly worthy of being Will's girlfriend. During a school break, James receives a phone call from Austin. Austin tells him that his previous opponent has agreed to a rematch, and now they need to find a safe place to hold the fight. He pressures James to arrange it as soon as possible. Without wasting any time, James asks Danny and Blaze for help, setting up the match in an old building not far from the school. Just like before every fight, Austin gives James another injection before the match begins. But this time, something feels different. The reaction in James's body is far stronger than usual. His adrenaline spikes and his emotions start spiraling out of control. After winning the fight, James suddenly feels extremely nauseous. His body begins itching all over and he looks clearly unwell. Seeing this, June quickly rushes over to help him. The symptoms are all too familiar to her. She immediately realizes that what he is experiencing is the effect of steroid use. At that moment, June shares a painful memory from her past. Her brother once went through the same thing, and in the end he lost his life because of steroids. While she is explaining this, Austin suddenly appears nearby. The sight of him makes June furious, and she immediately vents all her anger at him. Meanwhile, Will has been searching for June. Suddenly, he receives a message from an unknown number containing a photo of June together with James. The image instantly sparks jealousy inside him. Hurt and frustrated, Will begins drinking heavily and ends up venting his disappointment on Diana. At the same time, the tension between James and June continues to grow. Slowly, the feelings they have been trying to hide become impossible to ignore. In that moment, both of them finally admit that they have fallen for each other. A love that had been quietly forming since the first time they met. But just as they are about to kiss, Danny suddenly rushes in with urgent news. Will is having a seizure? It turns out Will suffers from epilepsy. Hearing this, James immediately tells June to go home first. However, when June finally arrives home, another shock is waiting for her. Austin suddenly appears at her house. That night, June's mother happens to be out of town, which makes the situation even more frightening. Austin threatens June and warns her to stay out of his affairs with James. If she refuses, he claims he will not hesitate to harm both her and her mother. In that moment, Austin also reveals a disturbing truth. He is actually James's stepfather. After Austin leaves, June is still shaken when someone knocks on the door. But this time, it is James. Afraid of Austin's threat, June decides not to tell him what just happened. Instead, the two of them spend the night talking about many things: love, life, and friendship. James admits that growing up was never easy for him. His parents were always busy with their business, leaving him surrounded by loneliness and emotional emptiness. Over time, that isolation turned him into someone closed off and emotionally volatile. James also shares a little about Will's past relationship with Diana. At first, their relationship looked perfect, full of romance and happiness. But over time, Diana became extremely possessive and Will began to feel trapped. Eventually, Will ended the relationship, but the breakup left him deeply depressed. As Will's best friend, James could not stand seeing him suffer like that. From that point on, James made a promise to protect Will from any woman who might hurt him again. But now, things have changed. James realizes that he himself has fallen in love with the very person he was supposed to keep away. And even though he knows it is wrong, he cannot stop the feelings growing inside him. June feels the same way. Deep down, she has carried feelings for James from the very beginning. That night, in the quiet darkness, the tension between them finally turns into something more intimate as they share a moment together. Later, James notices a cigarette butt lying in the yard outside June's house. That small detail makes him realize that Austin had been there earlier. Now, understanding that Austin has threatened June, James confronts him and firmly warns him to stay away from her life. And if Austin ever tries to harm June again, James is ready to make sure he ends up behind bars. The next day at school, Amelia asks June for her opinion about the dress she plans to wear to her birthday party that night, but June barely pays attention. Her mind is clearly somewhere else. She looks restless, lost in her thoughts as she worries about where things are heading with James. When she notices James walking toward class, June can no longer hide how much she misses him and immediately approaches him. James feels the same pull. The feelings between them have only grown stronger. But despite everything he feels, he forces himself to hold it in. It is especially painful for him whenever he sees Will acting lovingly toward June. That evening, June arrives at Amelia's birthday party together with Will. Amelia greets them warmly and quickly pulls June away to walk around the party. Meanwhile, Will suddenly receives another message from an unknown sender. This time, the message contains photos showing June and James together in intimate moments. Consumed by jealousy, Will immediately confronts James and demands an explanation. James tries to convince him that things are not what they seem. But Will has known James for years and he can sense that his friend is hiding something. At the same time, James also receives messages containing edited photos of him with June. Within minutes, the images begin spreading among everyone at the party. The lively atmosphere that once filled the room suddenly disappears. The laughter fades, replaced by whispers, mocking glances, and judgmental stares directed straight at June. The humiliation hits her hard. At first, June suspects that Diana might be responsible for spreading the photos. Seeing how shaken she is, James decides to take her to his house so she can stay the night. He apologizes, believing that his selfishness and his feelings for her are the reason she has now become the center of gossip throughout the school. But June tells him that this is not the time to blame each other. Meanwhile, Blaze begins to notice something strange about Amelia's behavior. She seems nervous, like she is hiding something. When Blaze sees Amelia's phone left behind on the couch, he secretly checks it. What he discovers leaves him deeply disappointed. Amelia herself is the one who spread the photos. Watching the friendship between Will and James slowly fall apart, Austin sees an opportunity to get revenge. He begins manipulating Will, pushing him toward the idea of fighting James. Austin knows that James will refuse to fight his own best friend. And if that happens, Will, who is now filled with anger and jealousy, will beat James mercilessly.
What are you fucking doing? I won't fight you!
At the same time, Blaze rushes to tell June the truth about Amelia's actions. After learning that Will and James are about to fight at a nightclub, June immediately heads there with Blaze. When she arrives, Amelia tries to block her path and publicly embarrass her. But June has had enough. Without hesitation, she lashes out and attacks Amelia. Meanwhile, Austin's plan unfolds exactly as he intended. Inside the fight arena, James refuses to fight back against Will. Because of that, Will continues hitting him over and over, releasing all the anger he has been holding inside. June desperately tries to stop the fight, but security guards quickly grab her and lock her inside a separate room.
You're dead!
Fortunately, she refuses to give up. She finds a way to trigger the alarm system, sending the entire crowd into panic and forcing the fight to stop. But the chaos only makes things worse. James, now barely able to stand, is dragged into a car by Austin and his men. The moment June sees this happening, she jumps onto a motorcycle and chases after them. At the same time, she deliberately draws the attention of the police, hoping they will follow her so she can expose the crime Austin has just committed. Unfortunately, the chase ends in disaster. The car carrying James crashes, and while Austin and his men manage to escape, James is left trapped inside the wreckage. As the vehicle slowly begins to catch fire, the situation turns critical. Without hesitation, June rushes forward and desperately tries to pull James out before it is too late. The flames continue spreading, and every second counts. Just when it seems impossible, Will suddenly arrives and joins her in trying to rescue James. Together, they manage to pull him free from the burning car. James finally survives the terrifying accident. After everything that has happened, Will comes to an important realization. Love is not something that can be forced. In the end, he chooses to let June go and accept her relationship with James. It is not because his feelings for June have disappeared. Rather, he understands that love is not always about holding on. Sometimes it means letting go for the happiness of the person you truly care about. More than anything, Will refuses to let his own jealousy destroy the friendship he and James have built over so many years. So the moral of the story is, if your school crush comes with MMA nights, mystery syringes, and group chat photo scandals, just date a library card instead. It is way less drama.